My name is Katie Starks, and I have my own business, Katie Starks Photography. I'm a full-time freelance photographer. I shoot a lot of editorial and lifestyle content. I went to Western and I studied photojournalism. I graduated in 2015 from the program, and I'm really grateful for that program and everything I learned at Western. It was really crucial to me becoming a photographer and being where I am today. But one of the things I learned when I was at Western is that I didn't necessarily want a career in journalism and pursuing photojournalism. So after I finished college, I didn't know necessarily that I wanted to work for myself. I had a minor in entrepreneurship when I was at Western, but I didn't know that I could freelance right after school. So I took a job as a studio photographer for a company, and I shot marketing photos for lots of different brands. And after about 10 or 11 months, it was really unfulfilling at the end of the day because I was making images that were helping brands make a lot of money, and people were, they went in emails that people, looked at for 5 seconds. So I didn't feel like any of my photography was like my own or for me, or having any sort of like lasting impression on the world in general. So I didn't know necessarily what I would do next, but that's when I started kind of hustling on the side and taking photos for myself, and working more on my food photography and shooting, helping shoot weddings, and just doing anything to get me out of the position I was in. So that's kind of how my business started.
So
Yeah, if you're not feeling used, I think that that's a big thing. Even if you have a job, not necessarily freelancing, you want to feel like all of your work and talents and creative abilities are like being like used well, and they're not just running you thin and dry on whatever you got. So I was really grateful that at the time I was wanting to leave my company, one of my friends that had a photography business was needing a lot of help. And so that was like a really good way for me to get my feet wet and see if it was all it was cracked up to be, because I thought that that could be a tangible decision, but I also hadn't done it before and it felt really scary. So I worked with her for a while and basically took on a lot of her work and helped her do stuff and see how she was running the business, and kind of learn from her, successes and hardships, and know how to do that. So that was awesome. I don't know necessarily without all of these experiences if I could have just still started. I think that I had it in me, but needed, you're kind of like in the shallow end with your floaties on and you like need help, and then at some point I had to just decide to do it on my own and jump in deep end by myself. But I had a lot of like mentorship in the beginning.
Yeah.
Even though I had an entrepreneurship background, I needed to like see it done firsthand to know that it was actually doable. Yeah, so I think a lot of that was discovered the year I was working with my friend Paige. I learned a lot from what it took to run a business, and knew things that I wanted to do maybe differently or in my own way. Learning from that was really helpful. So I knew I needed clients, and I knew I needed a tax guy and a good camera, and there's really very little overhead in a photography business. So I knew I needed to just make really great photos of people and work really hard to do that and keep doing that. I think that at some point I knew that I had everything I needed to just start it on my own and be doing that self-sustainingly. And it was a very clear time, provisionally, like that she was ready to focus on other things and I was ready to start. So yeah, it was a good like training period, but it was clear when the time that I had all the things, I learned the things that I needed to start.
South
I
Central
travel
Kentucky?
some, yeah. A couple of my weddings are in like Louisville or Nashville. I mean, it's all going to be in like the Kentucky, Tennessee area. One of my friends flew me to California because I wanted to work with her. But I mean, they're all, I think most of your clients, to answer your question, are going to be, you're going to have like one or two degrees of separation probably when people find you. A lot of it is from referrals. But I mean, I think that my target market are going to be young couples and young families, because young couples are getting married and starting families, or young families are having babies and growing children. So I haven't really worked with anyone besides, I think all of my people that I do editorial and lifestyle work for all kind of fit into that young couple, young family pocket. I think that everybody that's 20 to 30 years old is going to be on social media. I think that it's generally the only way you're going to get people to look at. I mean, and your own website and your work is on social media. So I don't really know what people did before they could post things on Facebook. It kind of stresses me out because, I mean, a good amount of my stuff is from referrals or people that, have worked with me and told so-and-so, maybe a pocket of that. But I think most people are just finding you online and emailing you or Facebook messaging you or Instagram. Like, it's all, you get messages on like every platform. So I think that social media is like the clearest way to reach people.
Money is probably the hardest hump to get over when it comes to starting.
And it's probably the scariest, because starting out, like, I think you can guess as much as you want, but you do not know what's going to happen. I think that I had to make, educated goals, but when it came down to it, like, a lot of it was just trusting, like, in your work and in people that will book. I mean, that's one of the hard things about going from a salary job to a freelance job is, I'm first, this is bad. I feel like that whole like 3 seconds, but whatever. I'm going to keep talking. I am thankful that I proved that I can do better like in a freelance job than I was in a salary job, which was a really scary move at first, because you're like, okay, like, I know how much I'm making in this office job, like, but I feel like I can do better than that. But it's scary to think about. So I think going into it, I knew how much I was going to charge for sessions. And one thing I would encourage people to do is, like, if you know how much you need to live and pay your bills, like, don't compromise on your prices. Like, if you think that, your work is worth that and you need to be making so much money, like, start your prices fairly so that you're not retroactively, like, just bumping them up as soon as you start getting work. Like, I think you can give people discounts or do what you need to do at the beginning to get started, but set your prices where you think that they should lie and like stick with that, because I knew exactly how many sessions I would need to shoot every month or wedding. I knew what I needed to do to make enough money, and it wasn't really so much as, because there's not as a ton of overhead. So I knew, immediately starting out, like, you don't need to go buy you don't need to expense a lot of things that you haven't earned the money for yet. I wasn't going to buy new equipment or new computer or anything until I had proved that I could make that money to pay for it. So starting out, I had, virtually, like, you have no cost. You have to pay for Lightroom and Photoshop, and that's like $20. And as long as you make $20, everything else is profit, right? So I knew how much my expenses were, and as long as I could save and keep working every month, I was going to be in business, And I had an accountant who helped me make goals for, okay, like, this is what you did this year and this year, like, how much do you think you can do, like, how much, are you charging, and what's a good guess, because we're paying taxes too as a self-employed person, so everybody pays taxes, but you pay more. So we had to make good guesses on that. So he helped me with that, and I mean, in my first year, I did, maybe like 30 or 40% better than I thought I was going to do, which is incredible. But you also, like, don't know going into it. You're like just trying to make like baseline, like, okay, we've got to keep moving and running. Like, what can we say? So knowing how much you charge and what you need to make and not compromising that, I think, was kind of were my goals to start out with. So, I mean, I've only done this for a couple years, but I know that like I'm not going to make as much money in cold months. Like, it's just a reality. So you work really hard in the, spring, summer, fall, and save for the winter. It's just a freelance life where the winters are harder. Last year.
Last year.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right.
But have been working. My business started last year, but I've been self-employed for almost 2 years. I think that just what we were talking about, the question before about finances was really important. I learned a lot about doing just that half of business, because I think you start a photography business and maybe you're a little naive to the fact that you're only shooting like 10% of the time, and you're like emailing and working and doing your budget and invoicing people and doing taxes the whole other percent of the time. So I think that I wish that I had known, I think the first year that I did business, it wasn't a full year, so I wasn't paying taxes quarterly, and I ended up owing more at the end of it, and there's nothing wrong with that, like if you want to do it that way, but I had been saving, so it wasn't a big blow, but I wish that I would have known earlier on to start setting up quarterly estimates, and I got a good accountant soon after, but I wish I would have known like day one, like, girl, get yourself an accountant, start paying quarterly taxes, like, so you're not owing lots of money at the end of the year, because then you feel like you just, no matter how much you made, you're going to cry and feel like you're giving all your money back to the government. So I think that I wish I would have known more of like, just, I had taken an accounting class. I don't feel like, I think I just cried on the day of the final, like it was really hard for me, but I think that I needed like some more like real-time training on that half of it. Like I knew what I needed to charge and like how to like invoice people, but I didn't know like the back end of me, like keeping up with everything and expense, what you can write off and just like the tax details. So I would say like get a good accountant like before you're going to start your business, and like know what's good and what's, what you can do and what you can't do. Mm-hmm. Because I learned a lot. And be willing to learn. Like, it's not my favorite thing at all, but man, I will sit for days and work on it because I know how important it is, but I hate it, but you have to do things you hate to keep doing the thing you love. So I'll make it work.
Exactly.
I think that a lot of people that are busy stay really, they're shooting a lot of stuff, but if you're not sharing a lot of your stuff too, then people kind of forget that what you're working on and what you do. So every time I do a post and do a shoot, I am gonna immediately like start curating a post for my blog to share on social media, to share with people, because I want people to know what I just did. Like, as long as you're sharing like really like new content all of the time, people aren't gonna think like, I think some people, if you don't see stuff from them in a while, you just wonder what they're up to or like what they're doing, and I never want people to question like if I'm taking work or if I am booking this or that. I want people to be seeing new work a lot, and hopefully that work is better than the work that they've seen. It's always like getting better and newer, so they're interested in it. So I think that sometimes like blogs or websites can maybe like go untouched for years, and you can be like, that's like a whole nother project that I can't work on right now, and it can feel like really daunting. But I think if it's just part of your workflow and it's built in that you're gonna do the session and edit the photos, but then you're gonna post it on Facebook and Instagram, it's just part of your routine, then it doesn't seem like out of the ordinary for you to just constantly be sharing new work. And it doesn't seem like, because if you keep back-ending it, you're gonna hate it in 3 months when you're like, I have to go through all of these photos. I don't even remember them because I took them 3 months ago, and I don't even know which ones I like right now because it's so long ago, and I don't feel like sharing it because it's old news. You can make excuses. So I think that staying on top of it and keeping you're present. You just have to be in people's feeds and in, you know, their news in order. Like, that's like free marketing, just like putting it out there and showing people what you did. You don't even have to, you know, advertise or ask for work. You're just like, hey, I did this, and they'll love it, you know. I've learned a lot of things, but I think that at the end of the day, I wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for people that I worked with. You know, if people weren't hiring me to make images for them, then I wouldn't pay my rent or try to buy a house or whatever that I'm trying to do. I wouldn't be able to. So I think it's easy when you're like working for yourself and your own projects to feel like really inwardly focused, like this is all really important to me, and I have to get my work done. I'm stressed out about my work. I have all these projects that are for my business, and I wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for, you know, Whitney or people that are hiring me to work for them. So I think that my best advice is to like take care of the people that you're working for before you're freaking out about yourself, because if you are more worried about taking care of your customers and making sure that you're gonna, you know, communicate with them really well, you're gonna show up like early and stay late and make sure that you have covered yourself and that you're gonna have tons of photos that they're gonna love, and that you're gonna hustle and like edit on the timeline you said you were going to. You're gonna get your stuff back on time. They're gonna love it. They're gonna be pumped about it. They're gonna share it. They're gonna, you know, and at the end of the day, like, they're gonna feel really taken care of. And even if, you know, you feel like you have a lot going on, like, that's the most important thing. Like, that's your business, and you're trying to like earn back. You don't even have to like earn back, like the work is gonna come back if that's your routine, you know? And if the person that you're making like work for feels really taken care of and valued, I think that sometimes it's maybe easy to lose sight of that because you have like a lot on your plate, but it depends. I think it just depends where your priorities are, because if you're taking care of people well, then you're gonna be doing your business well, I think, if you're serving your customers. My favorite thing to shoot is food. That's not necessarily what pays my bills at all, but I have a food blog named Cora and Louise that I do with one of my best friends, and the day, like a week after we graduated college, we did not have jobs, and all we wanted was to take pictures and make recipes, and we started a food blog, and it's something I've been doing on the side for, you know, almost 3 years now, and it's led to opportunity. Like, I've shot books and I've styled really big projects because of people seeing that work, and I shoot for a magazine where I shoot the food section and write recipes for people, and it's led to work, but it was never meant to. It started off just because I love doing it. So I'm always going to love shooting recipes. I hope I get to shoot a cookbook one day, but in the meantime, I'll take pictures of people's weddings. And, you know, I just love documenting life in general and moments. And it's, at the end of the day, like, these aren't pictures that people are throwing away or deleting. Like, it's art that they're hanging on their walls and treasuring, and I love making that for people.